Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Retrocution. So today I have a Japanese Spice Orange GameCube that was sent in to me for some mod work. And yeah, whoever packed this thing did a really terrible job. One plastic bag and a single sheet of bubble wrap here. I'm surprised this thing made it in one piece. Oh, wait a second. Here's some pieces moving around in here. Oh yeah, there's a couple pieces inside. So let's take a closer look at the damage. So you can see there's a real nasty crack there on the front corner. And the side looks okay. Ooh, right there in the back corner, that's where that big chunk broke off. Damn, that sucks. That could have easily been prevented with proper packing. Oh, and another crack right there by the memory card port. So yeah, guys, make sure you pack these consoles up nice when you ship them, because the post office does not give a damn about your package. So let's test this thing and make sure it works. I'll bring out my mini Trini here. Found this at a thrift store for $8.99. I love this thing. It's a great testing monitor. So I just want to test the console before I open it up, and it's always good to do that. You don't want to open something up and start working on it, and then later on, if it's broken, you don't know if it was before you even touched it. So make sure you test it. There's no disc in the console. I'm just gonna grab a game I got. Here's Resident Evil 3. This is an American game, so it's obviously not gonna work, but I just want to make sure the drive is, you know, trying to read the disc and it's actually working. So yeah, you could definitely hear it spinning and loading up and the laser moving around. And now, instead of no disc, it gives you the unsupported or unknown disc screen, which that's what I was expecting. I feel good about this console. It's probably working. So I feel fine to go ahead and start taking it apart. Alright, so the first thing to do is let's remove this Game Boy player. It's just two flathead screws. And then that'll just pull right off. Okay, now to open the console, we're gonna need a game bit screwdriver. You can get these on Amazon. And there's only 4 screws. Just give it a little shake and the screws will fall out. There we go, there's all 4. So now that we got all 4 screws removed, go ahead and take the top off. So now we'll go ahead and remove the back plate and remove the front here. Just go ahead and pull that ribbon cable right out. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove the fan and the power switch first. Just go ahead and unplug that power wire and then remove the 2 screws holding the fan in place. Alright, now we're just going to go ahead and remove all these other screws. And we'll just go ahead and fast forward through this because it's a lot of screws. It's actually 18 screws in total holding the laser assembly down to the motherboard. It's way overkill, but you know, that's why Nintendo's products last forever. Now that we've got all the screws removed, we can go ahead and just lift the laser assembly off the motherboard and put the motherboard aside for later. So before we can access the area to install the mod chip, we have to remove this shielding from the laser assembly. Yeah, it's just 6 screws here. So this is where we have to mount our mod chip. The Xeno GC chip, it just overlays over this area of the board. So you basically just tack it onto the pads that correspond with the pads on the chip. And when you're doing any kind of fine soldering onto a board like this, you're going to want to make sure to use flux. Just want to go ahead and apply some flux to the pads that we're going to solder to. And then now we're going to go ahead and position the mod chip in place, and we're going to apply some more flux. So go ahead and tin your iron, and then hold the chip in place and go ahead and tack it on. Then after you make this first connection here, it'll hold the chip for you. And there we go. For these small holes here, you want to get in there good. And since I'm using the skinnier tip on my soldering iron, it doesn't distribute as much heat as those chisel tips. So see, I have to get it from an angle and then get in there. On this one, I'm going to hold it in there a little bit longer, and that should be fine just like that. There we go. That connection could be a little bit better, so I'm going to go ahead and reflow it. So now all the connections look good, and we're ready to test it. So we don't want to start screwing it back together until we know it works. So what I'm going to do is just place the shield on there and just set it on without any screws. And then now we can just jerry rig this switch on there real quick. Yeah, let's plug the controller port in so we can use the controller and give it a go. So let's bring the mini Trini over again and see if our mod chip is working. I gotta hold the drive door button with my thumb since we don't have the top on there. And yeah, it's loading. Our install was good. Before we put it back together, we want to try a burned game, and I'm pretty sure it's not gonna read. And this is completely normal. Okay, see, we're not getting that black screen. It's not gonna read this disc. And the reason is because the laser has a harder time reading a burned disc, a homemade burned disc, than it does with a factory press disc. That was totally expected, and there's a fix for it. So what we need to do is remove the laser assembly again. So you see, that's why we didn't screw it down. And we need to adjust the potentiometer that controls the intensity of the laser. By adjusting this screw here, we can make the laser a little bit stronger so it'll be able to read the burned games. Okay, so before we start adjusting this pot, we want to see what our starting point is. We don't want to just blindly start changing it. So we're at about 484 ohms. Okay, so I want to try to get in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 ohms. So I did a little bit of an adjustment, turned it counterclockwise to take away resistance. And you see, even with that small adjustment, it went down way too low. So that's why you really want to use a multimeter when you make this adjustment. Because if you set it too low, you're just going to damage the laser. So we're at 299, still a little too low. Just increase it just a little bit. Now let's see where we're at. 336, okay, that's good enough for me. That's close enough to 350. So let's go ahead and try it again. So we got a burned copy of the Mega Man collection. Yep, got that black screen. There we go. So by adjusting that pot and giving the laser just a little bit more power, it's able to now easily read burned homemade discs. So let's just try another one to make sure that it's going to read it. Yep, there we go. So I feel good about that. I don't think we need to adjust that pot anymore. So before we put this thing back together, there's a couple things I want to do real quick. The first thing I want to do is replace the battery here that keeps track of the time. It's not that big of a deal, but it's something I like to do every time I open up a console. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the old battery. To do this, I'm just going to heat up the contacts with one hand while I pull on the battery with the other hand. So that's just an easy way to pull it out real quick. Be careful though, because you burn your fingers really easily. And to replace the battery, I'm going to install a socket for a new battery. That way in the future, if anyone needs to replace the battery, it won't require any soldering. So I just want to clean up the solder from the holes real quick. So there we go. Fits nice. So I'll just go ahead and solder it in place now. There we go. So now I'll just go ahead and insert the battery. So now we're done with that. So now the next thing I want to do is change out this LED. I'm going to use the same technique that I used to remove the battery. Just going to heat up the pads with one hand and pull on the LED with the other. And there we go. And again, I'm going to go ahead and use my solder sucker to clean the leftover solder out of the way. So now our holes are nice and clean. So now we can go ahead and install our new LED. I decided to go with a slow flashing RGB LED. These are really cool because they give you that RGB color flashing effect without any additional components. The LED just does it by itself. Go ahead and install the controller ports back into the little faceplate here, just with the 2 Phillips screws. All right. Now let's test the LED and make sure it works. All right. It's looking good. I think we're ready to start putting this baby back together. So one thing I want to do before I install the shield, I just want to add a piece of electrical tape over the solder points on the Xeno GC chip. This is just to make sure that the shield never shorts out against the chip. I doubt it will, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'll go ahead and throw these 6 screws back in here to hold the shield on. And go ahead and place it back onto the motherboard. All right. Now we can put all the screws back in. Okay, now that we got those screws in, we can go ahead and put the fan back in. All right, so now I'm just realizing when we get to this corner here, the fan's in the way. So make sure you put this corner screw in before you install your fan. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and remove the fan real quick. It's not a big deal, it's only 2 screws. But yeah, put that screw in first. Now put your fan in. I'll never make that mistake again. All right, now just a few more screws here. They really went overboard with the screws holding this thing down. I'll go ahead and reconnect this power cable here. Get it routed into place. Let's do one last little dust off here. Get any leftover dust bunnies out. Let's go ahead and plug in the control ports. Install the back plate. Now put our top back on. We're almost there. I like to just drop all the screws in first. And I go from corner to corner. All right. Now I just gotta throw that Game Boy player back on there and we are done. Let's do one final test on it. And since we have it with the Game Boy player, let's test the Game Boy player. And I have an Easy Flash 4 here that I'm gonna use, and oh, I'm retarded. Yeah, had. All right, and I have a burned copy of the Game Boy player disc because the real ones are just way too expensive. All right, let's fire this bad boy up and see if it works. And there you go. Yeah, why buy a Game Boy player disc when you can just get a mod chip and have it installed for less? And the pieces that broke off, they perfectly fit back inside. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put a little drop of super glue and stick these back in there. So in the end, we were able to salvage our little pumpkin spice GameCube here. Check it out now, that's one sexy GameCube. So if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please leave a like, please subscribe to the channel. Your support really means a lot. Thanks for watching.